Hi, I'm Bryce Crittenden.
Hi, I'm Caroline Land, and welcome back to EPL's Overdue Finds.
Hey, Caroline, what's going on today?
I had, again, a little bit of mic trouble getting connected, but the team here, professionals, got me through it, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah, we had that one recording where it was all good, and then we haven't been able to get it to work since.
Have not been able to replicate that, but we've got a few more records coming up in 2023, so I'll get there.
We'll eventually get it all figured out anyway.
Yeah.
So
how are you doing today, Bryce?
all good. I was just mentioning before you came on, I'm getting over a cold that seems to be going around. Like everybody's been getting it. During our last recording when we were talking about Skinamarink, I could feel that thing festering in me, and I knew I was getting sick. And sure enough, it was out after that. So glad to be back. My voice is pretty much back to normal, but had we recorded last week, it wasn't sounding very good.
Well, I am glad that you are able to record with us today.
It's interesting because Valentine's Day is just coming up. It's just a few days away here on February 14th. And we thought today, hey, let's take a look at some of pop culture's all-time greatest romances. So that's what we're going to be chatting all about today.
Yeah, so wherever you are listening to this podcast, we're going to do a warning. It might get steamy.
Yes, we're spicy.
We don't know yet.
We don't know, but I think with our two guests that we have today, it's almost like they become like whenever we kind of get into this topic a little bit of especially romance, it's like we have two guests that we can always count on to bring it to the hoop and help deliver us awesome podcast material. So I want to welcome back to the show. She was last on our TV theme song episode. Official friend of the show, Anna Wallace. Anna, how's it going today?
Hello. I am so pleased to be here to spread the romance love. And I love, Caroline, that you got the mature content warning out of the way.
Yeah.
Because we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming.
Wherever you're listening to this, maybe in transit, just pull the Bryce move and double check that the audio is going into your headphones.
Exactly. Also joining us today, official friend of the show. I can't believe it's been this long since she's been on. She's part of our CMA team here at EPL. She was last on our Bridgerton episode, which was like, I don't know, about almost 2 years ago now. Welcome back to the show, Beth Kilfoy. Beth, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm excited to be back. And I feel like anytime anything romance related is on, I have to be here. I have to be here. I was in on the first episode we did when we talked about romances on the podcast, and I will always be here when romance comes around.
Definitely.
Romance is in the air, and so am I.
Well, something else that's in the air is celebration. And I wanted to mention, before we get into our Overdue Finds picks, which we get into before talking about romance, that people here in Edmonton may have noticed EPL's very own CEO, Pilar Martinez, on the cover of Edify magazine. Pilar was named one of Edifiers, which is their award name for 2023, as a trailblazer. So congratulations to Pilar, and if you haven't had a chance to check that out, you can go and see the cover story and all of the other edifiers at edifyedmonton.com, and we'll have a link to that in our item list.
Yeah, that was really cool to see Pilar get recognized for that. So yeah, let's move on to our recent Overdue Finds picks. Anna, we're going to start with you. What have you been enjoying lately?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a pick for you. And anyone who has worked with me lately or has known me lately will not be surprised by this pick. It comes literally out of nowhere. I've been talking about it constantly since it showed up in my stocking over Christmas. And what I am talking about, what I would like to express to you, is that everyone should go out and pick up and borrow from the EPL library a book titled Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. And you shall consume this piece of science fiction pulp smut. And when I tell you it is so good, it is so good. Ruby Dixon is a authoress who is not afraid of having a really, really good time. You're going to have fun world building. You're going to have super fun characters, great dialogue. And yeah, you're going to have 7 foot tall, blue skinned barbarian romantic leads. And you're going to question, what am I reading? But you're going to really have a really good time. So that's my pick for all of you. You're welcome.
I love that. Like I haven't read this yet, but I get the sense that like you might ask, "What am I reading?" but never, "Why am I reading this?"
Oh no. She will tell you right away that this is where you need to be and this is what you need to be enjoying. It is such a good time. 10 out of 10.
And sorry, what
Planet
ice planet
Barbarians.
barbarian.
So there's a group of ladies who get abducted by aliens, but then they stage a coup because they're prisoners. So in their coup battle, they crash on an alien planet, and it's an ice planet. And then one of them has to be brave enough to go out of the ship. I love that the podcast isn't going to get any of my hand movements
I'm
that's
here
happening,
for
but
it, though.
I am
It is so selling this book right now.
It's true. The out of the ship in particular was great.
out of the ship into the ice planet, and she has to figure out a way to save her friends. And by doing so, she meets a lovely alien gentleman who would like to help her out in more than ways than one.
I'm looking at the book cover right now.
Isn't it pretty?
And you know, it is like, I've mentioned this before. I know they say like you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but let's face it, we all kind of do.
But which version are you looking at, Bryce?
It is one where I'm looking at it on Amazon, and it looks like you can kind of see the blue guy standing off in the background. You just see his upper torso.
Right. So it's like the cartoon.
Flowing long hair. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That one's great.
It looks like this is a whole series.
Oh, yes. What a gift. She said, I've created a great world, and then we're going to have all the extra characters pair off with romantic. And she's so good at like tropes. She understands science fiction tropes, but she also understands romance tropes. So you have 2 separate leaders from basically 2 different cultures, the women and then the ice planet barbarians, and then they have to figure out a way to bring these 2 cultures together. It's beautiful. And then in the second book, you get like a different romantic trope, and then the third, and then the fourth. It's a good time.
Beth, how about you? I know you're obviously one of the main reasons why you're here, big romance fan. Is that one of your picks this week?
I'm making so many romance recommendations further into the episode that I decided to go a different track for here at the beginning. I just finished a reread of Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. It's the first book in the Nevermore series, and every time I recommend it to someone, I tell them it's gonna scratch your Harry Potter itch. So if you're looking for something to fill that hole in your life, give Morrigan Crow a try. She's a cursed child doomed to die on her 11th birthday, but she's whisked away by a man named Jupiter North to the secret magical city of Nevermore, and there she has to compete against hundreds of other children to join the Wondrous Society. So it's a really fun magic school fantasy series that both kids and adults should enjoy. And it might be familiar to some of our listeners and some of our library users because it was a Young Reader's Choice Award finalist in 2020.
When you were starting to explain it, I definitely got YRCA vibes from it. So good to know that it was part of that collection anyway a few years ago.
Yeah, and book 4 is due out in theory this fall. It's been postponed once already, but book 4 is due out this fall. So it's a good time to get in if you haven't got on the Morgan Crow train yet.
Nice. Caroline, how about you? What have you been enjoying lately?
I also have a book recommendation for my Overdue Finds pick, and that is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. And I put to you a question. Can you stop a murder after it's already happened?
Well, obviously not, but I'm willing to bet you're about to tell me otherwise, though.
Can you imagine, like, the book is like, no, that's not possible. Next, and then just goes on from there. No, this is the story of Jen, a mother of a teenager. He's just turned 18, and one night she sees him seemingly out of nowhere stab someone outside of their house. She doesn't know who the man is. She doesn't know why her son Todd has a knife. She doesn't know why this might be happening, but it's a nightmare. And she goes to bed after having to deal with all of this and wakes up, and it's the day before this happened. And she lives through that day and goes to bed and wakes up, and it's the day before that. And so now she is going backwards through her life and trying to figure out why that's happening, trying to figure out if she can change the future, and along the way determines that so much of her life was not actually what she thought it was, and as she sees things from different perspectives, is able to come to terms with a lot of guilt she has in her life around trying to balance her job as a lawyer and also as a mother, the influence she's had, her relationship with her husband, who may or may not be who he seems to be, but they've been married for 20 years, so how could she not know him? So much of this, I was a little skeptical at first. This is very much my kind of neon scrawling cover book. You know, the book title of it is in neon colors and like scrawled on. And I was reading it, and I was like, I love time loops, but I don't really know if this is it. And then it just hooked me, and I couldn't put it down. So it's, I believe it's one of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks. So a lot of people are reading it. Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister.
Does it really lean heavy into the whole kind of like time looping, time travel thing? Like, is it a little bit more sci-fi than what maybe kind of how you described it as?
It's less sci-fi based than thriller based, but she is trying to find out why this is happening, and she gets to a point where, you know, if it's just about stopping the murder, you know, she goes back in time by 2 days, goes into her son's room, takes his knife, and then like throws it in the garbage. So, you know, murder avoided. If he doesn't have the knife, he can't stab the guy. But then she wakes up the next day and it's still the day before that. So obviously that wasn't what she was kind of on this journey to undo. So this element of kind of like in Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray is trying to like figure out how to break the pattern, she is trying to figure out what she's there to see or resolve or take notice of, and is she just going to live her entire life backwards? So she does get in touch with some time travel experts, and there's always the thing around like, how do you prove to someone that you have actually talked with them in a future that they haven't experienced yet? So that's always a good time.
That sounds like a great book. It sounds like something I would definitely enjoy, and we'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, and it is, in addition to being at EPL in various formats, it's also one of our hits to go titles. So keep an eye out for that, and at next time you visit one of the EPL branches. Bryce, what have you been enjoying? Are we 4 for 4 on books?
Unfortunately, no. I'm going to break that trend this week. We just had the Oscar nominees announced, and of course it's always fun to go and look at who is snubbed. Like, congratulations for those people who got their nominations, but what about the people who didn't? And in my opinion, one of the biggest Oscar snubs this year was in the Best Actress category, where we had actress Mia Goth, who wasn't nominated for her role in the horror film Pearl, which is actually my Overdue Finds pick this week. Now, the movie Pearl is actually a prequel to the movie X, which also came out in 2022. It's part of a trilogy from director Ty West. And just give you a little bit of a background. X, so the first movie that came out, took place in the 70s, and it follows the crew of a movie who are shooting their latest flick on a farm in Texas. When the elderly couple who live on the farm find out what kind of movie they're making, you can kind of maybe guess what kind of movie they're making based on the title of the film, things start to take a turn for the worse. Now, the movie Pearl, though, takes place in 1918, and it is about the title character played by Mia Goth. And it's about her trying to basically leave her mundane life on this farm and become a star. So this is actually, in my opinion, this is the rare case of a prequel being better than the original film. So X I was kind of on the fence about, but Pearl I thought was a great movie. And Mia Goth gives a haunting and tragic performance as the title character Pearl. So kind of like I hinted at before, this one is not going to be for everyone. So if you are planning on watching Pearl, I do recommend you watch X first. Know that Pearl is the better movie though, but both films are available in our collection on both DVD, and you can also stream them as well. So Pearl was one of my favorites from this year, and I think it's one of those cases where, especially with horror and the Academy Awards, horror gets overlooked a lot. But Mia Goth, she should have been nominated.
When is Pearl set?
1918, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then X is set during the 1970s.
Okay, I've seen it in our collection. I kind of know that it was released in this last year, but I've always been a little too nervous that it might be too scary for me, so...
Yeah, see, I wouldn't say, totally depends on, I guess, what you find scary. I personally don't find, X to be scary. X is definitely more of the horror film than Pearl is, for sure. But typical slasher flick, so if that stuff does scare you, then maybe you'll want to not borrow that one.
That's what's great about the library. There's something for everyone.
Blue alien smut and horror movies. We have it all.
Side by side on the shelf. Watch out.
Best display ever.
Yeah. All right. So main reason why we're here today, of course, we're talking all about the great romances in pop culture. Beth, I'm going to start with you here. I guess what elements or qualities do you think makes for great romance?
So I'm probably going to start off a major debate here. I am partial to happy endings, but I know many people, when it comes to great romances, will go for the tragic endings. I mean, Romeo and Juliet is obviously sort of like the standard. I was a teen in the early 2000s, so Moulin Rouge is a tragic romance that will forever speak to me. But I like happy endings. So I think those often make for really great romances. I like a good spark between my romantic leads. Often that means banter. So whether that's like enemies to lovers who are like fighting and then not so much fighting, or just like some really good banter. I always love that. And really effective use of romance tropes, I think, makes for really great romances. So The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood is a fantastic use of romance tropes. It takes the fake dating trope and just like takes it to the absolute pinnacle of what that trope can be, and it was so wonderful. It makes me so happy. Anyway, so that's some of the things I think make really good romances.
She started as a fanfic author.
I know.
Isn't
I
that
know.
great?
So great.
I love that. There's so many like great fanfic authors now writing and publishing books, and it's just so cool to see like little communities get like writers out into the publishing world. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, it's totally fine. I'm your turn. Take it away.
I mean, I would just pop off what you said already. Like banter is super important to me. Chemistry, like it needs to kind of be palpable. There needs to be that spark, that fight, that back and forth because like for me a happy ending's not going to be satisfied if I didn't go through something to get to it. And I love when palpable chemistry means I never know when or if they're going to get together. That's when it's so satisfying when it actually does. Like but see, I'm like, I mean, is anybody surprised if I say that I'm like a little weird and I find like the oddball romances a little bit more interesting?
Not at all.
Like if you look at something like Notting Hill, that's like the pinnacle of like a rom-com. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got great writing in it. It's got great character actors. It's got great chemistry between the leads. Lots of fun. Friends on the outside. But once I've like kind of seen a romantic trope perfected in pop culture like that, I don't really want to see it again. Like if I want that, I'm going to go back and watch Notting Hill again. But if you look at something like Moonstruck with Cher and Nicolas Cage from '87, my gosh, like what a surprising place to find a love story in. You've got the girl who's like has to get married because she's getting old, her family's getting old, they need her out of the house, or like whatever, you know, that thing you do. You get old enough, you want to get married. And like her fiance is kind of like a wet rag, not very interesting. And then she gets to have this meeting with a guy in the fire pit of a bakery, and he doesn't have a hand.
And he's like the brother
and
of
he's
her
angry.
fiance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's so angry.
Yeah.
But yet they have this like spark, and then she gets like blown away, and it just turns into this wonderful like family story about love and what are you looking for and finding something unexpected. So that kind of stuff really gets me really rooting for those two to get together.
There's so many stories, now that you say that, around someone who's with or partnered with one person, but the actual better partner is their sibling. Like it's like you got so close, and then fate has to just like nudge you a little farther.
What awkward family gatherings that would be.
I think the most awkward for me has to be Family Stone, because that's a full on just sibling, two sisters swap with two brothers.
No.
Ugh. No.
Yeah.
No.
Spoiler.
No.
Spoiler alert. I did my steamy warning, but we should have done a spoiler alert for a lot of these books, because they do involve talking about the ending, you know, of that, and having that happy or tragic or whatever it is on there.
So what about you, Caroline? Is there anything for you that you're like, okay, this needs to be there when it comes to my pop culture romances?
Absolutely. I needed to have strong individual characters, so they are okay enough on their own, but together, it's just another element of their story. They have to like each other. Like they have to, like, really, even if they don't like each other, like they still need to like each other. And I think that's the banter, that's the enemies to lovers thing I have here. They have to like each other, but fighting is okay. So, they'll get there. And having obstacles. And I put down here realistic obstacles, but that's not really what I mean, because go as outlandish as you need to be. I do want them to eventually sit down and talk to each other, but not too soon. So that's, basically, there's a lot kind of happening in that lead up to get together at the end.
Yeah, big conflicts that could be resolved by like one conversation make me a little bit crazy. A little bit crazy.
It's essentially like a misunderstanding, and then it's like,
Well, misunderstandings are okay, but for a long time in romance, it used to be that they were the de rigueur of how to move the plot forward. And we've gotten to a point now where romance is taken seriously enough that people are like, okay, that's not enough. Like, make it that her sister's dying of cancer. Make it like there's a asteroid coming to the Earth. Like, whatever you want. But if they're just literally working at the same Starbucks and they just can't say what they mean, that's boring.
And that's, I think, what I mean by realistic obstacle is that, I would rather have the asteroid coming to the Earth than the two people side by side at Starbucks, because to me, the asteroid is an obstacle. It's like a legitimate obstacle versus the just tell her that what you saw was not what she thinks she saw. Just say it. She's right there. Mm-hmm. She's on the same shift.
There's no line. Yeah. The manager's not there.
The manager's not there.
It's left you an opening.
Now I want you two to co-write this Starbucks romance.
Well, see, this is I do need to kind of get out of my head sometimes on this, because I am thinking like, what do I want? I want this Starbucks romance between like two reasonable people who have excellent communication. Is that the most exciting read? Maybe not.
Absolutely not. No.
But
But it's cozy as all get out, Caroline. Sometimes a cozy romance is all you need.
Yeah, but you can have mystery, you can have cozy, and you can have misunderstandings without it being like, if you just turn to her and say this. Like, there's always ways to be creative and get them in and out. I am never going to judge someone their romance choices. I'm never going to ick whatever you're into. But like, there's a way to do it that keeps things like light, or that keeps things light, but then can still move the plot along where they're not getting together day one. Although I don't mind the trope where you like the one night stand and then something pulls them apart and then they have to like have that awkward, like, ooh, we know each other's like intimate secrets. I've seen you naked, but now I have to work in an office with you and it's awkward. Like, sometimes that's really fun.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything we say, there will be exceptions to. So.
Yeah, true.
Bryce, what about you? What do you think makes for a great pop culture romance?
I kind of like the fun story with how they came together. And I know this is like, a lot of people may roll their eyes at this one, but if you think of on Friends with Ross and Rachel, they have an awesome come together story. Anna just right now.
No.
Do they?
Ross is
I know Ross is the worst.
Ross is the worst. He is like so problematic
yeah.
and awful, and she's annoying as hell. Sorry, Bryce. I just did it. Didn't I just say I wasn't going to ick anybody?
You did
like,
say
To be fair, though, I will say that like, when Ross and Rachel have their first kiss, that moment is pretty fantastic.
That was
the
huge.
first time they get together was huge.
Yes,
it was a cultural zeitgeist moment.
But leading up to that moment, though, we get that really funny, awkward, old like family film footage of the prom date, and Ross was going to go with Rachel, and then he got ready, but then Rachel's date shows up. So we kind of have that stuff going, but I like kind of a good story like that, a good origin story of how they come together.
It is interesting. I will point us to the episode. This is not a Friends podcast yet, but the one where Chandler's mom comes to visit, and Chandler's mom, Nora Bing, is a romance novelist, and she Ross, at this point in the first season, Rachel is dating Paolo, the Italian, not a lot of English spoken, but a passionate time had by both of them. And Mrs. Bing says, Paolo's not endgame. She doesn't use those words, but I can't sell the Paolo. You're the romance hero, which is saying a lot to Ross, but it's that this is a complication this is something you're going through on this journey to being together, and it's this kind of like meta moment of what the characters are going through. Bryce, we all cut you off there. Do you want
that
to
was
continue?
it, pretty much. You've covered most of the stuff already. So.
We know that Anna and Beth, both of you love romance as a genre. So we have to ask, what are some of your favorite romance novels or series?
I've talked about it, I think, on the podcast every time we've talked about romance. Any Duchess
Courtney
Will
Milan?
Do. No, Any Duchess Will Do by Tessa Dare.
Yes.
I adore. It's the romance novel I got my husband to read when I got him to try romance, and he liked it. Also in the historical romance vein, Georgette Heyer, who is a like classic historical romance novelist, sort of like set the mold for the genre back in the like 30s and 40s and 50s. She started writing Regency romances. Her novel Frederica is one of my favorites, but a lot of her books are great. Some other historical romance series I really liked are the Maiden Lane series by Elizabeth Hoyt, which is set in the Georgian era. The Wallflower series by Lisa Clay Pass, which is great, and I love a good wallflower story. They're always so great. They deserve romance. And the Brothers Sinister series by Courtney Milan, which is fantastic and involves a lot of like, there's suffragettes and women scientists and lots of women that you don't always see in the historical romance sphere. On the contemporary front, I've already mentioned it, but The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood is fantastic. I absolutely adored it, and it reminded me of like why I love reading when I was going through a bit of a rut last year. The Spoiler Alert series by Olivia Dade is really fun, and also a body positive romance.
My hold on the third book just came in yesterday, so
I just finished the second one a couple weeks ago, and I'm eagerly looking forward to the third book. The Bromance Book Club series by Lyssa K. Adams is really fun, and also has the different perspective of men reading romance novels and talking about them and implementing the lessons they learn from romance novels in their relationships. It's great. If you're looking for something a little bit more on the cozy and less steamy side, the Lonely Hearts Bookshop series by Annie Darling is adorable. It's a British romance series set in a bookshop that sells only romance novels, and they're just delightful. And finally, the Brown Sisters series by Talia Hibbert is really great and features a series of, well, it's about a sisters who are all Black. So if you're looking to diversify your romance reading, that's a really great one to pick up. Did I steal all of your answers?
Well, the funny thing, Beth, is that I came in when I looked at the outline, I looked at that question, and I was like, didn't I write a book list for the Bridgerton episode with all like my favorite historical romances on it? And I sure did. You should, one, go back and listen to that episode because it's fun. And then two, go back to the notes and check out our book lists for it because so good, all that fun stuff. But since you've covered so many great historical romance series, because we're talking books right now, right? We're talking books?
Yeah, whatever.
I will give you some of my favorite manga romance series, actually. I also have a romance manga list on my EPL staff page, which is public, and you can go look at it. But I really loved reading Maid Sama by Hiro Fujiwara. I wish we still had it in the EPL system. We don't. Maybe my friend from CMA can take a look at why we don't, because it's really great. They made an anime of it in 2010, and it's so fun. It is just, it's not enemies to lovers because the male lead comes right out the gate. He's like clearly in love with her, but he has to wait for her to catch up because she is just this like, they call her, she's the school president, but they call her the demon president because she's just like so type A, so get done. And I just like love that for her. And, but the greatest thing is that she has to work part-time at this maid cafe. So out of school, she has to dress up into the maid costumes and like serve people like she's their maid in this cafe. And he finds out that she works there. And then it turns into this whole like kind of blackmail-y, more like just kind of like fun to get to know her. And the guy, Usui Takumi, my goodness. I know not everybody's into cartoons, but I am. He's so handsome. The cartoon is great. The manga is also hilarious. That's a great one. If you love sweet, heartwarming stories, Ao Haru Ride, which is Spring Ride, we do have in the system, by Io Sakisaki, is so sweet. And it's just about like those like first blooms of love. And it has a lot, Bryce, of like we knew each other years ago, but maybe one of us forgot and the other one didn't. And then we're like finding our way back to each other and like how different we are now. And they have this really great like friend group and not quite misunderstandings, but just like not being able to say how you really feel because you're learning all of these things about yourself. It's beautiful. It's lovely. And then my dear friend, Jasmine Grace, who works over at Calder, shout out to Calder, just recommended on her Instagram My Love Mix Up, which is next on my read list by Hatsukoi. And it's about this kid who has a crush on someone in class and like wrote their crush's name on an eraser, but ended up borrowing the eraser like among the classmates. So it's like someone thinks that they like them and then they don't and then they do, and then it ends up being this really sweet boy love story. So you get some queer content in the Japanese manga, which is like my favorite. Very sweet, very lovely, beautifully drawn, which is half the fun, right? You just open up the book and you're just like, everybody's so pretty. And it's hard to keep going because you're like, ugh, everybody's so pretty.
Beth, you mentioned the wallflowers kind of storyline or trope or style of book. Does that often involve a makeover?
Not usually. I mean, occasionally, but it's not as common. It's more just that, like, usually someone is a wallflower either because they're, like, a little bit introverted and shy, or this woman wanted to be a wallflower because she didn't want to give up her inheritance when she got married, which is, like, a big thing in historical romance. Women gave up all financial control as soon as they got married. But often, like, wallflowers, it could be just you don't conform to societal norms, so you're too loud, you like boxing. I don't know.
You talk like a man.
Talk like a man, or you don't have enough money, so no one wants to bother hanging out with you because they're in it for the money side of the marriage mart thing. Historical romances are weirdly like the whole economic side of things plays a real important role in historical romances, and often can lead to awesome women being wallflowers. But occasionally, yes, there is a makeover. It's not as common.
Yeah, and I was just kind of wondering if that was
like a good makeover montage, Caroline.
Well, I'm a big fan of people kind of recognizing their own power and coming into their own true selves and kind of owning that. And sometimes that can come with a makeover or transition of some kind. But then also that can also be you need to conform to society in some way. And I mean, The Breakfast Club is probably the best / worst example of that, and what they do to Ali Sheedy's character. But yeah, I think like many things we're talking about today, when used at its best, it can be in service to the story, and when it's not, then maybe it doesn't speak as much to me.
The fun thing about the wallflower trope is that it really feeds into this offering the main characters an opportunity to have an assumption about the other one, right? Like, oh, the rake and the wallflower, like, oh, he's just like a man slut, and oh, she's just like a mousy girl who's like never gonna talk. And then once they get to like know each other and be forced into situations together, you get to actually like oh no, like she was on the wall because she can't handle people. This girl is loud and fierce and nasty. It's my favorite trope is when the wallflower and you turn around and she's like, yeah, cool, then I'm down for anything. And he's like, whoa, I don't know how to deal with this. Like when you get that kind of like surprise, like, oh, like you hear that sometimes with like really long-term relationships where you like sometimes you've known someone for 20 plus years, right? So maybe you've grown up with them, maybe you've just been married a really long time, and then something gets to surprise you where they like maybe deal with the situation differently, or you get to witness a little bit of growth and you get to like fall in love just like a little bit deeper, or just like a little bit like more far reaching. I don't know, it's just so cool to me to see and witness those moments.
Wallflower romances are some of my favorites when it comes to historicals. They're so good.
Beth, beyond the kind of the specific romance genre, are there any other fictional romances that stand out to you?
So I'm sure I've mentioned on the podcast before, I'm a hardcore Jane Austen fan, and while some people will think of her novels as romances, they technically weren't. Like, they were just social commentary that happened to have a romance plot. So of course I have to mention Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, because they give me all the swoons all the time. That said, I will also put in a plug for Persuasion, which has the most romantic letter in all of literature, hands down. It makes me so happy every time. From the Canadiana side of things, Anne Shirley and Gilbert Blythe's romance in the Anne of Green Gables books, and also the miniseries with Megan Follows. So good. I love it so much.
We could have like a whole episode on just how long the miniseries takes to get to their first kiss.
Oh my
so
and
God.
how good it is once it happens.
It's so good. If you have an Anne of Green Gables episode, I'm here. Have me on. I will talk about Anne and Gilbert until the end of time.
It seems like something we'll do eventually on the show.
It's a really good time. They're doing a like online exhibit of the original manuscript from PI. There was an article on CBC about it. It's really cool. Anyway, that is not at all related.
Anna, how about you?
Oh, are you ready for things to get weird? I love finding elements of romance where they kind of have no business being. Like, no business. And I think the perfect example is the filmmaker Paul Thomas Anderson. I could make the argument. So he did Punch Drunk Love, Phantom Thread, There Will Be Blood.
Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights. Incredible filmmaker. I love his work. And I would make the argument that all of his stories are about love in some form or another, but I think he really does love romantic love, but he's weird about it. So one of my favorite movies, The Phantom Thread from 2017, about the fashion designer who meets this waitress and she becomes his muse and they end up getting married. And the way that she handles kind of bringing him back into their relationship when he's gone too far into his creative world is that she poisons him with mushrooms. Spoiler alert. But then she gets the opportunity for him to slow down, and then she has to take care of him through his illness of being poisoned by these mushrooms. And you should laugh. It is ridiculous that I find this sweet and romantic. It is. I know my brain is different from most people's. But there's something really lovely about people who are kind of on the fringes of what we think of as normal, what we like to have as the middle ground, and being like weird and maybe sometimes a little toxic and just odd. But the idea that even those people can find someone that will kind of love them wholly and completely is really beautiful to me. And I know not everybody sees things that way, but I do.
Speaking of Paul Thomas Anderson, have you watched Licorice Pizza?
Not yet. I've been meaning to.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah. I know I will. And I've kind of been just like I love him as a filmmaker. I haven't seen a movie of his that I've disliked yet. I really loved Punch Drunk Love too, which is another kind of like oddball love story. And I love that he's married to Maya Rudolph. I don't know why that makes so much sense. And they have like 4 kids together. I just love it. I love everything about it. Another weird movie that has kind of along the same lines is Secretary from 2002 with James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal, where James Spader is kind of like coming out of his like being thought of as this like teen heartthrob, and he plays this masochistic lawyer who hires Maggie Gyllenhaal as his secretary, and he gets her to do stuff for him. And it's very adult. There's technically no sex in it, but it is a lot of adult situations, and there's something really lovely about their chemistry and their desire to be that other person for the person that they love. Like her whole sequence at the end of the movie at his desk is just like crazy. Anyway, has anybody seen it? Am I talking into the void? Beth is like, I looked at the cover and I said, no, thank you.
I have to confess, I haven't even seen Moonstruck, so I'm
Okay, no, but you will love it. It's Cher, it's Italians, it's New York, it's 80s, and Nicolas Cage. It's great. It's great. You have to watch it.
As somebody who I roll my eyes at a lot of kind of romantic comedies and dramas, that one I would probably put at the top of the list as far as like movies we're probably going to be talking about today. It's that good. I would recommend it to anybody.
I need to get around to it. I just haven't managed it yet.
I believe it won Best Picture.
It did. And Cher won an Oscar for it because that's
Yes.
when she wore that fabulous dress.
Caroline, how about you? Like what, I guess, pop culture romances really stand out to you?
I think when I was looking at where my mind went, a lot of it, I can fill in the romance part. Or I guess the physical part. What I want to see is that chemistry. I want to see that spark. I want to see that dynamic that people have. So I mean, my mind goes to my 90s upbringing with Mulder and Scully and like
Yes.
them, and
Yeah.
were they ever really a couple? I would say, were they ever not a couple?
Right.
And in terms of caring and loving each other, it's in the moments, those quiet moments that they would have, of sticking up for each other or just getting each other, and then like the banter, the jokes, the rolling their eyes, all of that. Yeah, I don't need to see a wedding on screen. I don't need to see them, doing sexual things on screen.
Although the
I
ratings
can-
for that would have been huge.
Nobody wants to
I think-
watch David Duchovny do a sex scene. Come on. No, thank you.
Isn't that what all of
I was
Californication
gonna-
was?
Yeah,
that's what
I
was
didn't
gonna
watch
say,
it.
yeah.
Neither did I.
That's all it is.
So that, I mean, it's not super far to jump from Mulder and Scully to Han Solo and Princess Leia in Star Wars. Again, like when you go back and you look, like they become a couple like really quickly and off screen, basically, at least in the movies. I'm not that familiar with the extended universe of Star Wars, but for me, their great moments are things like arguing in that ice hallway on Hoth. Hoth Leia is the best Leia, to my mind, except for General Leia later on. I really wanted her. This is off, and kind of like, I guess maybe speaks to Han and Leia not having a happily ever after, or the happy ever after ending depends where you draw the line, because you go from Return of the Jedi, and then in the next, when we revisit them 30 years later, they're not together. They like things don't end well for them. Yet that doesn't negate what's kind of come before, and the chemistry piece in there. Having all of these like thoughts around these characters made me want to go back and check out. It's been a while since I've watched The Thin Man, and I've never read the book by Dashiell Hammett, and so the idea of like Nick and Nora. Yeah, so I was like, I should read the book or just watch the movies. So luckily EPL has both, to give me some chance to check out Nick and Nora Charles. Again, an established couple. They know each other. They get each other. They respect each other. And having that element in there. I also wanted to give a shout out to the book Graceling, which I read for the first time probably a decade plus ago, maybe 15 years, and the main characters in that, Katsa and Poe, have this really great relationship, and part of it is her being able to define what relationship she wants without losing herself in it. And the part that sticks out to me is this idea of, I'm not necessarily, our story doesn't necessarily end in marriage, because then I would have to submit to you through this relationship. We might just remain equals in this structure because he's a prince and there's royalty and there's so much involved with it. But this idea of like self-determining what success looks like for your relationship, I was like, that sounds awesome. Let me read more. And I did, which was Fire, also by Kristen Kishore. So, yeah, those were some of the ones that came to mind for me. So very heavy on that dynamic, not so much necessarily on the physical. Bryce?
Yeah, so for me, kind of getting back to the beginning where I talked about, like, do they have like a good kind of coming together story? And, I think about
Monica and Chandler. It's got to be Monica and Chandler.
Always.
No friends. It is a sitcom though, kind of. The Simpsons. Homer and Marge Simpson. You think back to the episode kind of in, I think it's probably season 2 or 3, where we see how they come together in high school, and Homer's this awkward kid, and he finally, he wants to impress Marge, so he joins the debate team, asks her out, and then of course kind of loses her to Artie Ziff. And of course Homer, he saves up all of his money, goes to the prom by himself, and then of course ends up getting Marge in the end. But we have this we have these really funny scenes with Homer and Marge in high school together. And also too, like, incorporating music into some of these scenes too. We have the song Close to You by the Carpenters that plays. That's kind of a Homer and Marge's song. Now, unfortunately with The Simpsons, because it's been running so long, over the years we've seen different, like, how they've come together stories, but really this one with them and being in high school together in the 70s and the whole prom mix up, and they eventually get together. That for me that's what romance looks like right there with Homer and Marge. And plus too, like, obviously they're not the perfect couple, but I laughed too. There's an episode where Homer writes Marge a love letter and sends it to her from, like, I don't know, Duff Gardens or something like that. And of course he's like drunk as he's writing it, but Marge, being in love as she is, she saves this drunken postcard from Homer from Duff Gardens. So to me, that's what relationship goals totally look like. And we talked a lot about, like, romances today, but what about bromances? I know it's a little bit different.
Go on.
Go on. How about the bromance from Peter and Sydney, played by Paul and Jason Segel, in I Love You Man, about a guy who, for guys as we get older, it's really hard to, this is probably a whole other episode topic. It's hard to make kind of friends as you get older. I'm sure women find the same way, but for guys anyway, it's like you have your core friend group, and if you got to expand that group, it can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. But in the movie, Paul Rudd's character is looking for a best man for his upcoming wedding because he doesn't have too many guy friends, and of course he meets Sydney, played by Jason Segel, and they become good friends. And yeah, to me, that also, obviously we're talking about bromance here, but that's also just kind of a fun friendship story.
That's a really good segue into my next question, which is, what do you want to see more of from pop culture when it comes to romance? And I think bromance is kind of platonic relationship of friends, and celebrating friendship might fit in there as an answer. But Anna, what do you want to see more of?
I have been interested in romance and watching romance and searching for romance when there was no romance for pretty much my entire post-puberty life. I think I was looking for it as a kid too, because Pocahontas and John were like the pinnacle at like 8 years old. But the thing that kind of bugs me, to be honest, is that not like the people that make the big decisions don't always take it very seriously. Like it's thought of as this like, oh, it's just for women, or we'll just throw a little love story in it and da 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 da. Like I was rewatching The Batman, the latest one that they did, and I don't know what they were thinking, but those two had zero chemistry, and all of their like interactions with each other were just like a bit cringe. And it would have been so simple to just have like a longing look, or just like a little sassy comment. You don't need very much. Like Caroline, I agree with you. Sometimes I can make romance out of like one like close up on a face when he's looking at her,
Hand touches.
or like a look back. Hand touches. I can make romance out of nothing, but you have to like treat it not like, I don't want to say seriously, but like appreciate it. It is there. Like humans interacting with each other. There's intimacy. There's love. There's platonic love between friends. There's like love between everybody, right? Like we toss it back and forth. So there's no reason to like, ha ha ha. We don't have to worry about that. I don't know what it is, but it bugs me. So I want to see more of it, more content. Make more shows like Bridgerton. Not like the second season, but let's do season 1 again.
Yes, please.
We never came back. But my opinion was season 2 was terrible.
I share that opinion.
I will not explain. Thank you, Bess. I knew you would agree with me.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. We could do an entire episode probably just complaining about that nonsense.
About season 2, yes.
Yeah. But like love stories for everybody. Like show me the asexual kids in high school finding a way to be themselves around their partners. You know what I mean? Show me the 35-year-olds who had 3 kids and then need to re-fall in love with each other, or decide not to be together anymore. You know what I mean? Like I want stories about every possibility of humans interacting with each other. And that's not just romance, right? I want to see it in all kinds of content. One of my favorite pictures that my friend Maria, who is a podcast pal over downstairs at Lit Van, reminded me today, I suggested to her and we both watched, was Love and Leashes, which was released in 2022 on Netflix. And it's about this couple who meet in the office, and they have a consensual exploration relationship between pain and pleasure with each other. And it's from Korea, and it's surprisingly wholesome and very respectful for this community of people who enjoy doing this stuff together. And it is like a sweet little love story, also hilarious, and filmed in a way that is like kind of like fantastical and strange and hilarious, and they all kind of have to like deal with their relationships together. And it is so sweet and so wonderful. And it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is somebody's cup of tea. I want to see everybody's cup of tea get the, pop culture moment, or little nuggets around, right? Because everybody deserves great content, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. See everybody's cup of tea.
Beth, how about you?
Sort of related to that, this one's particularly for historical romances, but I think all romances, I'd like to see people who aren't in their late teens or early 20s as the only protagonists. Contemporary romances have gotten a little bit better, and I've definitely read some where people are in their 30s and 40s and occasionally 50s, although that one's not so common. But especially in historical romances, they really focus on like people who are in their, like, the women are definitely in their late teens, early 20s. Sometimes the men are a little bit older, which is appropriate for the period. But there were lots of people, like, let's be honest, life expectancy wasn't great. There were lots of like second and third marriages going on, and I would love to see some romances with some older protagonists. The only one that really comes to mind is Courtney Milan's novella, Mrs. Martin's Incomparable Adventure, which is a female-female romance, where the leads are in their late 60s and early 70s, and it's delightful and charming. But you don't often get like romances for people, honestly, usually over 40. And so I would love to see that, because it definitely exists. People have long lives and find someone else again. So I would love to see more of that.
Bryce, what about you?
I had the same thing actually as Beth, like just
The Courtney Milan novels?
Exactly.
I want to hear about grandmothers finding love for the third, fourth time.
No, just, we do get for, obviously, growing up, saw a lot of that stuff like high school comedies where, that they, this couple comes together, or university, or just starting out in your career. So yeah, maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but let's see some of those, see a few more middle-aged romances. Caroline, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. Mine is just more. I want to see more of people. I want to see more of that diversity of character. I want to see more lives being portrayed in pop culture, and then as a part of that, romances will come out of just there being more of it. Two things that popped out to me was a couple of years ago I read the book Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory. It's part of like a web, a universe of characters who all kind of have their own story, and in this one it's kind of like somebody's mom, whereas in other worlds it would be the daughter who is the main character of it, and here it's her mom who's having the delightfully polite and protocol based British romance over Christmas that is just so geared to me. It's like she was writing it just for me. Or Check Please, the webcomic about two guys who fall in love while playing college hockey. Their characters unlike any I've seen really in mainstream pop culture, and you just want more of it. So yeah.
Check Please is so cute.
But doesn't it feel so good when you find a piece of pop culture, book, movie, TV, webtoon, whatever, and it just feels like it was written for you?
Yeah.
Like they took out their little spin and they're like, I'm going to write a book for one human on this planet, and they spin it and it's like, boom, Caroline.
Yeah.
I've had that happen a few times where it was like, this is for you. And it just I want everyone to feel like that once in their life at least, right?
Absolutely. It's magical. Good. Bryce, before we get to our roundtable questions, can you let people know what we'll be chatting about on our next episode, which will be available on Friday, February 17th? Is that right? I needed to check on that. That's not right at all.
It's Friday, February 24th.
The 24th. Yeah, I knew that wasn't right.
Yeah. So March is just around the corner, and you know what that means? It's time for the annual Overdue Finds March Madness Tournament. So join us on our next episode where we preview this year's tournament and we give our picks on who we think should win. Caroline, lots of work right now being done behind the scenes here at Overdue Finds Enterprises to figure out what that list of 64 things may be. I sent you a note yesterday on it. I'm confused with where to go. Yeah. We will get it all sorted out by the time we do our next episode.
What do they say? The darkest hour is just before the dawn. Yes. So we're going to keep pushing through and we'll get there.
Yeah.
So for today's roundtable question, the first one, I sent out a link to people with a romance title name generator, which we will link to in our item list. And I asked, what is your romance novel title? I will start with Anna because it's alphabetical.
Alphabetical. I always get to go first. It's quite lovely. Yeah. So my title, which I can picture it on a the red topped Harlequin, but this is what it is. It's Harlequin. It's got my face on it, and it's Wealthy Millionaire Forbidden Affair.
Nice.
Very nice.
Nice. Beth, what's yours?
Mine is the Dangerous Maverick's Secret Prize.
Ooh. Bryce?
So get a load of this one. Mine is Renegade Billionaire Virginal Bride. That's right. The Renegade Billionaire Virginal Bride. That thing screams bestseller.
I might have to go double check mine because mine also starts with Renegade, ours shouldn't start with the same one. So
Bryce, yours is dangerous.
Yeah, Bryce, yours is dangerous.
Did I read mine differently? Let me see.
Dangerous Billionaire.
I would happily give up Renegade
Red Hot
to
Air
you.
It.
My last name is Renegade Billionaire Virginal Bride. My first name is Dangerous Billionaire Red Hot Harris. Nice. I like Renegade Billionaire Virginal Bride a lot.
He wants a cozy romance versus the passionate yacht stuff.
That's right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Caroline?
Yeah, so I also did first and last. I wanted to just have total coverage here. So mine's the Renegade Texans Scandalous Indulgence. That's one. Or I can't get away from Texan with that second A. So the Enigmatic Texans Forbidden Proposal.
Oh
Either one. Like this was a good generator. They knew what they were doing when they made this one. So our second question, Valentine's Day is coming up. What would be part of your ideal Valentine's Day?
I always like chocolate, but mostly I just want some time being cozy on the couch with my husband watching a rom-com. I don't need anything really fancy for Valentine's Day. I'm a homebody.
Anna?
For those who know me, know I can't actually say out loud what I would like to do on Valentine's Day. So I'll just say I like to make the joke. That's why I'm making everybody laugh. I actually showed up today being like, how many times can I make Bryce blush? Oh, just like some fun times with your partner, connection, all that stuff. I'm not picky.
Bryce?
I'm going to tell everybody a little secret here. Guys really don't like Valentine's Day. Well, there's one. So we gave our content warning. There's one thing guys do like about Valentine's Day. But for the most part, I guess for mine, I will say that not having to go to a crowded restaurant would be my ideal Valentine's Day. Going to a restaurant on Valentine's Day is awful. So if I can avoid that, it's an awesome Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Caroline?
I want to watch the I Love Lisa episode of The Simpsons, aka the Choo Choo Choose You Valentine, which originally aired February 11th, 1993. So the 30th anniversary of the classic Lisa and Ralph episode. So
you can see Ralph's heart break in real time.
Yeah. It's definitely how I remember the U.S. presidents through all of their songs and plays. So you learn, too, while you laugh.
A masterclass in writing, that episode. My goodness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anna, Beth, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we go, is there anything that you would like to let our listeners know about? Anna?
Oh, anybody who's listening to this podcast and is interested in checking out what the literacy van does, feel free to check out epl.ca/EPL2. That's a 2, not TOTWO. EPL2 Go. It'll have a listing of all the places the van likes to visit, any special events we're doing. Come visit us out in the boonies. We love to connect with EPL patrons out by the vans. Yeah.
Nice. And Beth, is there anything you'd like to mention?
Yeah, some of my brilliant colleagues in my department have put together a list of online resources that all relate to the theme of love that you can find on the EPL blog this month. So whether you're looking for something to read or watch or listen to, there's likely an awesome resource full of good things just for you.
And Caroline, I got a quick plug here as well as we wrap things up. Everyone can hear from Pulitzer Prize winning artist Art Spiegelman on February 21st during the first Forward Thinking Speaker Series event of 2023. So you can get your free tickets now for a conversation with Art Spiegelman. So during this online moderated talk, Art Spiegelman will discuss his career, the recent banning of his award-winning book Mouse, and his art. So you can visit epl.ca/speaker series to get your free ticket. And I also want to mention that the event is presented in partnership with our friends at the Calgary Public Library. So it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't done so, we encourage you to subscribe so that you automatically get all of our new episodes. Please also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and most importantly, tell a friend about the show.
Don't forget that we'll have a link to everything that we talked about in today's show notes. There's going to be lots of great books for you to check out. And if you want to share your favorite romances with us or just suggest a future episode topic, please email us at podcast@epl.ca or hit us up on Twitter by using the hashtag EPL Overdue Finds. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.